Welcome to Popes and Pylons. Let's talk a little about Europa Universalis IV. Yeah, that's right, this is not a gameplay video. So if you're here for the gameplay videos, check out all the other videos on my channel. This is simply talking about Europa Universalis IV and specifically talking about Rebel Suppression. Now, I've been complaining about Rebel Suppression a lot recently in my videos, and so much that it led to a very thoughtful and long comment by Bisa about how she thinks Rebel Suppression should work and how it should not work the way I think it should work, maybe. And I felt that was worth addressing, and I want to do it in a video because so everybody can, well, get value from it and not just those few who actually read the comments, especially comments on a late video. So, I've just set us up here a nice little Scotland game, which I'm not going to continue playing, just to show off Rebel Suppression mechanics, and then to talk about what's going wrong, to bring in Visa's comment then, and to see if we can't get to a point where we agree. Now, Rebel Suppression in general, why are we doing it, and how does it work? So, we have unrest in provinces sometimes. Our own core Scottish land here does not currently have any unrest. There's a tiny bit of war exhaustion generating unrest, but there's so many negative factors that our core Scottish land is just very, very happy and unrestless. But down here, these former Brits, English? What's in English? They're all Scots, really. They just need to learn. These people, they're not happy. They used to be in their barbaric little England land, and now we brought them civilization and whiskey, and they're unhappy about it. Lord knows why. So, what can we do about it? Separatism 15 generates unrest in here, does not hit our modifiers strong enough, or we don't have enough negative modifiers to stop it. So, how it used to work, it still works, but it's just not the best way to do it, is I would be able to move my troops there, and now I have 10 unrest here in Northumberland, and once I run into Northumberland, we suddenly have, after the monthly tick fires, we have 6.3 unrest. Why? Because we have friendly troops here. Every troop reduces unrest by 0.25 if you're at full maintenance, up to a limit of -5. So if I had 20 troops here, I could reduce this by a full -5 instead of the 375. So that used to be how it worked. And then if you had a larger army, what you would do is you would split your army around and put people in multiple places to get the unrest reduction spread out. Then in a recent DLC, they added a new button here, autonomous rebel suppression. There was one here that was hunting rebels, but now it's actually suppressing rebels. Now, one argument that Bisa makes in the comment that I won't go into detail here or into depth here is that DLC features always add strength to the player, and this is a buff. Having this is better than not having this, not only from a convenience standpoint, but also from a power standpoint. You'll see why in a second. So right now we can reduce unrest here by 0.375 and not at all here. If we split our army, we would split around our unrest reduction. Now if I hit this button and fully suppress this whole state, then we get -5 in Cumbria and -5 here. Wait, what? So we expanded our suppression from just Northumberland to both places, and by doing that we have increased reduction in both places. That is because there's a giant modifier, a multiplier, on how much suppression you can do when you are in this suppression mode. I believe it's something stupid like 500%, but don't nail me down that number. It's just big. You get much more bang for your troop. But not infinite bang. So right now we get the maximum of -5 in both of these provinces, right? -5, -5. But there's still more English down there that just don't understand the power of whiskey. And you can already see it in this interface. Once I add Yorkshire here, unrest rises. So now instead of having -5, we're back to our -3.75. Which kind of supports my 500% assertion earlier, because now we're suppressing 5 provinces rather than 1, and without suppression we got -3.75 in 1, now we have -3.75 in 5 provinces. Okay, So, rebel suppression can be extended. The mode is just adds a lot of power. So you should never, if you have the DLC, you should never just suppress by standing somewhere. Unless you're drilling. Bit of a aside there, because you can drill and still reduce unrest in a single province. But usually it's right to turn on this mode. And then the more land you want to suppress, the more reduced the power gets. Note that adding more land to the suppression that has no unrest does not change anything. Still 6.3. If I add the Isles here, all of that, it's fine, because we have no unrest up there. Okay, so much for the basic mechanics. Now, what's my problem with it? Because this is just, it's powerful, and you could argue that DLC should not make players more powerful, and that's, again, a whole nother argument, a whole nother discussion. But for now, what about rebel suppression? Well, the thing that annoys me is, let's say I want my troops over in Sutherland because I need to attack Norway next and take Orkney back with its distillery. And my troops are all busy suppressing down here. So I could stop suppressing. Yes, I will stop suppressing, and walk all the way up there. What happens? Unrest goes up. I will get rebels down here while I'm busy taking the distillery. I'm getting screwed down here. Bad, right? So we wait for the rebels to stop being there before we walk? No. What we do is the following. We know that rebels only tick up. So this rebel progress here, it only ticks up on the monthly tick. So on the 1st of every month. So suppressing in between then does nothing. So what I can do is I start walking. Let's keep going. We'll arrive in Lothian on the 15th of March. That's all fine. Let's go. When are we going to be in Perth? On the 22nd. Let's go down one speed so I don't screw this up. I could be in Inverness on the 31st of March, but this is scary and I might miss it. So I'm going to stay here in Perth. Turn on suppression. Wait for March to take over. 1st of April, and then continue walking. And then I do the same every month. And so I can sort of step my way to my goal while still suppressing. And what that does in the end is add a whole lot of tedium. If you're constantly doing this, it's optimal to play this way. You should always be doing this. If you have unrest in your country, and since you can project any direction, any distance, as long as there's no water in between, straits are fine. Then you should always have all your armies, if they're not drilling, suppressing. Every one of your armies in your country should be suppressing a place that has rebels in it. And while you're moving them, they all need to do the stutter step, and it's annoying. So, what I suggested in my earlier videos was that this should not be a mode that is cancelled by movement, but rather you give this army a region, like this, and then they keep it even while moving around. They would still do their suppression while doing it, but because otherwise you would just have all your armies constantly and suppressing all your country, I would have this be add some negative modifier to this, such as reducing morale. Same as, say, when I'm drilling, right? If I get a general, do I have a general? No, grab one. If I had a general, and instead of rebel suppressing here, I would be drilling. My army morale would go to 0, start of the next month. And so while I get a bonus effect from drilling, my army is currently not able to fight. And I could have the same thing, my army be ready to, they're busy suppressing, they're sort of everywhere. And because they're sort of everywhere, they have low morale as sort of an indicator for that. Would be fine by me. Now this has one pretty annoying disadvantage. That is, if I'm sitting here suppressing, everything would be fine. Right? I would be low morale, I would be suppressing, I could move around, it would all be good. But if rebels actually fired on my troops, so let's say I'm not standing in Perth, but I'm standing in Northumberland, and the rebels just spawned on me, then I would just get stack wiped. Which would first of all be bad, and second of all, we wouldn't. It's not really doesn't really make sense, right? Your army is spread out. There's small stacks everywhere. They're trying to keep those rebels down. Why would rebels showing up kill them all? Because rebels in EU usually spawn in one province. If they're big stacks, later they spawn in multiple provinces, but generally they spawn in one province as a giant stack. But that's of course not how a rebellion works. Just as my troops would be spread out suppressing those rebels, the rebels would be everywhere a little bit. So they couldn't just surprise and kill my whole army. So that would be something, a kink to work out maybe in the system, but I still think that something like this would be good. Now, that's what I suggested on the video before, just while playing. Now let's have a look into what Visa posted. And I'm gonna skip on the part about DLC because again, different topic. Just focus on rebel suppression here. So Visa says, suppressing rebels is one of these features. It removes some busy work, splitting your army accordingly into smaller and smaller groups, but it also simply buffs suppression. Yep. You get a factor of 4 or 5 times the power you used to get. And you're allowed to keep your army together, therefore you don't risk losing parts on a rebel pop. You're safe against invaders, you can even project from very far away. And while this seems strange at first, you get used to it, and if you're playing a hard campaign or feel like optimizing, you're supposed to do that. So far, so agree. And while you've lost a lot of busy work to split your troops accordingly every month, you've got a lot new possibilities. The troops no longer need to be at the destination. You can move them, it just takes exactly the same busy work you used to need for suppressing. One could argue there should be some other way of doing that. Just move there and keep suppressing. Okay, that's what I argued. I think it should be the other way around. Not that it's not likely, as PDX will most likely try to avoid removing, nerfing some features that have been in a recent DLC. But I think suppressing an area should split the troops just like it used to. Just on one click instead of billions reshuffle a month. As soon as they get the order, they start to spread out with their normal speed. If they reach a province, they start suppressing there. So if you're stepping like that, you'll only suppress the current province, as the army had just a few days to travel from this province to another province, which was not possible. So Bisa is saying that what I just showed, doing like a province a month and keeping suppressing, then that would not really help in her suggestion, because the army would be together. Instead, what she suggests is if I press the rebel suppression button, what these guys would do would be something like this, and then just go yes, and suppress everywhere, right? That's sort of the suggestion. So they would split up into the suppression, so stutter stepping does not do anything. Let make a change of order restart the counter, as the troops have to reorganize themselves, which might be clumsy as well. But reduce this busy work while also keeping closer to the capabilities of pre-DLC, non-DLC experience. One could even introduce a pop-up window telling the player this army will take 150 days to adjust the suppression to the new order, so the player can see what's going on. Now, first of all, thank you for that comment. Clearly I liked it, or otherwise I wouldn't have made this video. I'm not 100% sure whether the suggestion is to actually do this split up that I just showed, or to have a fake split up mode. So if I do this, then the army stays here, but it takes a while for the suppression to hold here. And then if I move, it resets that. Either that's the suggestion, or the suggestion is to actually spread out the army. Now, the spreading out of the army is actually something that's in a different Paradox game already. In Hearts of Iron 4, you can give an army a suppression order, and they will just split up the troops in the army to best suppress that. And you'll actually have your cavalry running around everywhere and trying to sit on the places with the unrest. And it's good. It works. It's also really not something you do with armies that are supposed to fight. And Hearts of Iron works very differently than EU4, where armies and frontlines and stuff are concerned. So in Hearts of Iron, I would have a front line down here with a bunch of troops at the front. They just keep guard against the English, and behind there, they're barring naval invasions. People couldn't get there. So I could just have military police spread around, reducing the unrest everywhere. That would be fine. In EU4, that's not how that works, right? You're not splitting your army. You have a giant doomstack somewhere, maybe multiple giant doomstacks if you're really big, but you want to have big armies to fight and not small troops all along a line. If I had sort of unrest suppression troops everywhere, then it would be very hard to defend them from actual war. So I'm not sure that that is... I mean, you could argue that that's good, because it makes things harder, but it would not be a very convenient feature, at least. Also, troops in EU4, unlike Hearts of Iron, they all cost the same. They don't all cost the same. Cavalry are more expensive, and cannons are even more expensive than Cav. But you can't just build small unrest suppression units like you can do in Hearts of Iron. That's just not a thing here. I can't have a specialized, cheap unrest suppression force. I would have to use my actual armies, which again makes me very vulnerable to English counterattack on my distilleries. So that I don't love it. Yeah, it used to be the case that you needed to do the split up. And yes, you would get punished for doing that by rebel pops or by people attacking you. It would hurt. And maybe we want to go back to that. But first of all, that's not happening. Visa is totally right. They're not going to remove this feature from the DLC. And second of all, I don't think that this is... I don't think that this is logical. I don't think it makes sense in the world even, as I said, because rebels don't pop in one place either. So I think it's okay. If your abstraction is that rebels all show up in one place, then I think it's also okay to abstract away the fact that your troops need to spread out. So the second option would be yes, they're all staying in one stack, but they have this spreading out of suppression. So instead of the instant suppression I'm doing here, we would get the same amount or a different amount. We can discuss that. Why this needs to be five times as powerful, I also don't know. It's just so powerful. But instead of getting this effect instantly, bam, the effect would come in delayed on a timer, depending on how far the place is away from my troops. I think that could actually be good. It would be a lot less powerful than what we have now, so it would make the game harder, but that's fine. The game's easy enough as it is. And there are difficulty modes for those who don't agree. And yes, it is ridiculous that I can just project from, Cadiz to Beijing. Not that we can see Beijing here. But I can. If I own a connected piece of land from here to Beijing, I can have a troop in Cadiz suppressing in Beijing. And that's ridiculous. And if there's no unrest on the way, they will even have the full suppression power in the end. So yeah, maybe a delayed thing here would be quite a good solution, because it would stop the stutter stepping that I've been doing. Yes, it takes away an option from me, but it removes the tedium of having to do that, feeling like I have to optimize and have to do that. So that could be a solution. If you don't want to go for the nerfing of this, then I think my solution of... It would still be some sort of nerfing. Well, moving around. I think my solution of having this be always on, even while you're moving, but having morale reduced to 0, so you can't just have your armies prepared for war and projecting somewhere else, that would be fine by me. I think either one would be a fine solution, and I would really like Paradox to implement one of those, because I really, really, really don't want to be forced to do this. It's so annoying. It's so annoying to do this, and it's so wrong not to do it. The stutter stepping. So, what can you take away from this video? Except from me talking a lot. We have... If you didn't know how suppression works in the game, then now you do. If you didn't know that the optimal way to suppress, to move armies while suppressing is to do this every month. So to move in between the 1st and the 31st of a month, and make sure that you end up standing still in a province that you own by the end of the month, so you can send out projection, and then as soon as the first happens, you can move out again and your rebels will never fire. So that's the way you're supposed to play it now. pretty sure. Also, it's bad that that's the way you're supposed to play it, and that should change. I think we agree upon that. Pisa's suggestion is one of going back to the days of when suppression wasn't as strong as it is now. Mine keeps it stronger, but fixes the tedium. I think both of those are valid. Thank you guys for watching my video. If this is the first one you watch on my channel, I do a lot of EU4 Let's Play content, mostly going for hard achievements in areas where stutter-stepping suppression is unfortunately necessary. And I have a giant backlog full of campaigns in different areas of the world. Do hit that like button if you like my video. Subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, because duh. And I always enjoy discussions in the comments. It's rare that I do videos like these responding to a comment. Normally I just respond in a text comment itself. But if your comment is insightful enough, then I'll also definitely be interested in doing more of this. Thank you, Pisa, for the comments. Thank you everybody for watching, and see you guys next time.